right now. Good morning. Thank you very much again for joining us in this month's forum. Again, I would like to remind everybody that this is the time and the place that you would hopefully share with you your questions, and we would answer, hopefully from, represent from different parts of the central services on campus, my office sponsored programs, and accounting. But before that, we would give you a couple of very, most probably quick updates from sponsored programs, and then accounting. They would Mario, representing the accounting, would talk about some updates that they are going through, and then hopefully we would get some questions from you, and we go from there. So with that, Kelly, Associate Director in Sponsored Programs, would you please go forward with your update from the proposal side?
Absolutely. Good morning and happy March, almost April, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have just one slide for you today that I want to talk to you about. And that has to do with compliance for proposals specifically. So when you submit a proposal, if you are representing that the IACUC and IRB are approved at the proposal stage, please confirm that that approval covers the very specific project being proposed. So if you have approval for that project, please be sure to attach the completed IRB protocol certification form to the IPF when it's routed. If a modification is needed to the IACUC or IRB approval to include the specific proposed project, it is not technically approved for purposes of the project, and the compliance should be marked as pending on the CAIUS 424 application. Does anybody have any questions about compliance at the proposal stage? No? Okay, well, thank you very much for your time and attention this morning, and I will turn it over to Grace.
Thank you, Kelly.
Good morning, everybody. I also have just a short presentation about awards that come to sponsor programs and awards that go to business contracts. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so just so you know, at the department level, I know it can get confusing. So here are some guidelines for agreements that come to SPO for the award side to review. That's our website up there, sponsor programs. You can, this information is also included in our website. But basically, here are the things to route to sponsored programs. All proposals for extramural outside funding, except for pre-proposals that do not require an institutional signature. And also coming to SPO, extramural awards for research, training, and public service, including those from federal, state, nonprofit, and for-profit sponsors. Subawards. Now this means subawards flowing through another institution to UC Davis, and also subaward requests that are subawards outgoing to another institution. So non-disclosure agreements in anticipation of research or other sponsored activity funding. Clinical trial agreements funded by government or nonprofit sponsors. Revenue service agreements if there's no approved rate. So if the budget is a line item budget, then the service agreement would come to SPO. Teaming agreements in anticipation of proposal submissions, and unfunded agreements such as MOUs, memorandums of understanding, and memorandums of agreements for research collaborations. So these are the agreements that SPO works on. Now, here are agreements for contracting services. And contracting services has kind of two arms, the business and revenue contracts portion and the purchasing portion. And you can look at their website at the link I show. And I'll just kind of review these points here. Business and revenue contracts reviews legally binding bilateral agreements And you can look at their manual for the comprehensive list of agreements handled, but here's a general list. So revenue service agreements for which there's an approved rate and commission agreements. So this is the main one that gets confused, is if your service agreement has only approved rates, please send that to contracting services. If your service agreement is a mix of approved rates and line item things, then come to SPO. Or if your service agreement only has a line item budget, then it is to come to SPO. But only approved rates, it goes to business contracts. All right, professional services and consulting agreements unrelated to research goes to business contracts. Training agreements, reimbursement agreements, including interpersonnel act agreements, where UC Davis employees go to a federal government site. Facility land use agreements, and which do not involve modifications of land or property, go to business contracting services. Appraisals of non-real estate transactions, executive search agreements, sponsorship agreements, and of course we do not mean sponsored activities in this sense. We mean somebody gives you funding to sponsor an event. Some short-term housing agreements and non-disclosure agreements in anticipation of revenue or professional service agreements. And then here's just a few more things. Purchasing negotiates and establishes unilateral agreements and conducts the competitive bids for goods, commercially available services, and technology-related transactions being funded by non-hospital accounts, examples being capital equipment, service and maintenance contracts, consumables, commercially available services, temporary staffing agreements, IT software, credit applications relating to goods and services. Okay, so this is under purchasing. And that is all I have. I'll make these slides available to Perry because I know that was a lot of information for you to take in, but just wanted you to see the breakdown between the offices. And we understand that it can get confusing when you have a high workload. But I'm just giving you some guidelines for when you don't know which office handles which kind of agreements.
Thank you very much, Grace. One thing I want to add to both what Grace and also Kelly talked about is that I know that there are lots of new departmental support across the campus. People changed, positions changed, and so on and so forth. What was discussed here is known to departmental supports who have been working in their positions for a substantial number of years. But from time to time, we would like to remind you that that we have to all work together on these proposals and awards. Going back to the policy of university, which says that any project funded by an outside entity who uses either university facilities to perform the work or is performed by individuals who are employed by the university, those proposals have to come through our office for review on behalf of the regents before they go out. I know that sometimes, things happen and suddenly an award comes in and maybe the PI wasn't expecting it, but in general, proposals have to come through our office and go out. More recently, we are seeing a lot of what's called after-the-fact proposals. Somehow, somebody in the department was not aware of the policy of university. Proposals have gone out, and the award comes in, and there are lots of issues that we have to deal with at that point to make things work. And sometimes things don't work because the expectation of the sponsor is not in line with what the university can accept. So unfortunately, there are times that, we might not be able to accept the award. So we are trying to avoid those situations. And that's why it's really important once especially the departmental support become aware that the researcher is working on the potential proposals to start working with us and meet these requirements. And so we can all work together. And also the part that Grace talked about, the differentiation between the offices or sponsored programs and contracting services. Still, from time to time, I talk to people across the campus, again, departmental supports, as well as the researchers, who think that all of those are in one unit, sponsored programs and the contracting services. Most of you know by now, hopefully all of you know, that sponsored programs is a part of Office of Research, reports to Vice Chancellor for Research. Contracting services is a completely different unit outside Office of Research, as has no connection to Office of Research. We work together on lots of projects, but we are not the same office. Requirements are completely different. So anyway, I want to make sure that you know about that. Seems like there are questions coming in. Perry, I don't know if you are checking the questions to see how we can respond.
They're not exactly questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, with that, yeah, there's always time to ask questions. Maybe we can go to Mario. Mario and James work together in contracts and grants accounting. Again, that's another unit which is not in sponsored programs. And there are lots of times that questions come to me from researchers wanting some help there, and I always have to send them to our colleagues in accounting, or more specifically contracts and grants accounting, which Mario is associate director in. Mario?
Okay. Can everybody see the PowerPoint? Okay. I can see Grace, so I'm going to be looking at your reactions. Okay, before I start this, I just wanted to say a couple of items that have been kind of circulating, some questions that might be coming up. The first is that we are aware that some sponsors have reached out to the PIs about invoicing, delays in invoicing. As you know, with the transition, we had a period of time where we had the blackout period, and then we wanted to get our invoicing. Our data sets had to be reconciled before we could move forward on invoicing. That has created some delays. We are aware of that. We have been working diligently to get our invoicing going. But if you have any specific issues coming up, some of those are reflected in our ticket, so we are monitoring that in the ticket. So I just wanted to put that out there. That is something that we're aware of. Additionally, I know this presentation is going to speak a lot about kind of an update of the stats in our ticketing system. So we have, so I want to talk first about kind of some updated stats from last month's presentation, and then kind of the path forward, how we're approaching our tickets. I'm going to have some of my colleagues, or actually Deborah Hand's going to give a brief kind of presentation on one of the key elements that we're seeing in our tickets that has the most numbers, which is cost transfers. And then we'll talk about path forward, and finally we'll finish with some resources that are out there. So and then we can leave some time at the end for any questions. So as James had mentioned last month, hang on a sec, bear with me. He presented some numbers where we were at the beginning or at the end of February and kind of where we are now. So I wanted to start with just kind of the numbers. So since go live, we've had almost 2,000 tickets opened, and there's been, if you look historically at the tickets, we had, before we even started going into ServiceNow to answer tickets, we had already, the first 3 days we had over 120 tickets generated. So we've been playing catch up, getting our numbers down. We've increased the percentage of total tickets answered up from last month to 70%. So it's a considerable amount of volume. It's been the result of a lot of hard work of the CGA team, the leadership team. I've been putting in a lot of effort. Simultaneously, we've been answering tickets, but we're also needing to identify the trends that are as a result of what happened with the data migration. There were some challenges that we had with some elements of data migration. We've been working through those. Additionally, the cost transfers, like I mentioned, have remained the largest percentage right now of the requests coming through. So in a minute, I'll go through kind of our path forward, what we're doing to address those challenges. But before that, there are some items that are coming up as we're processing cost transfers, where we want to point out some things that we're seeing in the tickets that are being generated so that we can, move forward with resolution a little bit more timely. So I'm going to have Deborah kind of give a little bit of walkthrough of some of the elements that she's seeing in the tickets that are coming through, and then we'll move on to kind of our path forward and what we're doing to increase our bandwidth. So Deborah, do you want to?
Sure. Thanks, Mario. So the cost transfer tickets are problematic at best. We've got dedicated staff working long hours trying to get through all the tickets. And what we're finding is with the older tickets, more than 3/4 of them are having to be returned to the departments for corrections because there's incomplete information. So we have updated the form that's attached to the KBA that's listed on the screen. We did that a couple weeks ago. We've updated it more than once, so make sure that you have the latest version when you're filling out your cost transfer request. We need the information about what the transaction looked like in DAFIS or in DS. So we need to know that it was a debit and it was this object code and what type of expense we were talking about, or a little explanation of what the expense was, so that we can decipher whether you've transcribed it to the new system data correctly. We need either a GL full chart string or a POET chart string if it's a PPM project that you're moving to or from. So we need one debit and one credit on each, one debit or one credit on each line. So every debit has its own line, every credit has its own line. We need to know where you're moving each transaction from and to. We also need to know if you're moving salaries, we need to know what benefits are going with that because they don't go automatically like they do in EasyPath. So those are just some of the problems that we're seeing. Like I said, in the early days, we were turning back about 3/4 of the tickets or more. It's gotten a little bit better over time, but we're still returning about half of the tickets for corrections because we don't have everything that we need to enter it in the system. And sometimes we're, it sounds like we're being super picky, but the system won't let us progress if we don't have the right information. If your item date is not within the project period, the system will not let us process it. There's no exceptions to this. I had one yesterday that it was a faculty project and the item was not within the project period, it was not within the project dates. And the person said, oh, well, it's okay. And I said, well, or Aggie Enterprise will not let me process this if the date is not within the project dates. So saying it's okay is great, but I can't do anything with it. So we're just seeing a lot of problems and it's taking us a very, very long time to get through all these older cost transfer requests. But I have trained 12 people in the last couple of weeks. So we're getting some additional help. Bear in mind that all those people are already working a full-time job. So we have to spread around the help resources a little bit. But I think we're making some progress and hopefully within a few weeks we'll be working on much more current information. So in the new form for the cost transfers, it's an Excel worksheet or workbook. And I put a tab in there for a checklist to make sure that your items are compliant with what we need to get it entered in the system. And we really do need all that information. We're not just trying to make you guys do paperwork after paperwork after paperwork. I think that's about all I've got. It is getting better and it'll get quicker and eventually we'll catch up and we'll move forward. Does anybody have questions?
Hi, Deborah.
The process?
I have a quick question. Will an email be sent out to everyone with the new KB, or should
It's
like
not
our
in
dean's
KB,
office send it out?
Janelle.
I'm sorry?
The KB doesn't change. It's just that it's been updated. If you link there's a link in the top center of the KBA. Mario, do you have the ability to click on that one? When you go to the KBA, I don't know if
It
you've
doesn't
got
look,
it.
it's not an
Not
active
a
link.
link. Okay.
I think I removed the
okay.
link.
When you open a KBA in the top center, right under the title, there's a link there. And if you subscribe to that link, you'll always get the updated version when you click on it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
And then a second question on that is tickets that are currently have been entered, if they haven't been returned, should we be proactive and share with our departments that to recheck their tickets to add this information? I think yes.
Yes, that would be wildly and amazingly helpful.
Thank you.
And if we return one to you and you have other tickets in, that would be great for you to check the others. If you have 40 people or 40 pay periods that you need to process, please do not put in 40 tickets. That makes our numbers look really, really skewed. And you can put more than one person and more than one pay period on one form. So just give us a big old list. We do have an upload option that we can use for large cost transfers. But you know, give us one ticket at a time. Don't give us 40 tickets. We've had a couple cases where people entered one ticket per person per pay period. And it just makes for a lot of extra busy work. So thanks so much, Janelle. Gwen, did you have a question?
I just would like to mention that most of us don't have the ability to subscribe to KB articles anymore, because that requires a higher level site license that Central Campus didn't want to roll out to us. So it really would help if you could tell us when the KBs are updated, because otherwise we have to manually go in and check every time.
Okay, well, I don't know how I would know who subscribed to it. I can send something out to the contracts and grants list.
I think you can assume that we have not subscribed to it because we do not have the ability to do so.
Okay, we'll send it out on the contracts and grants listserv then.
Yeah, we can talk about the communication,
Yeah,
Deborah,
so
and see.
right now we haven't updated it since late February, I think. So February 28th was the last update. And if we make any further updates, we'll go ahead and notify everybody on anyone who's on the contracts and grants listserv, which you can sign up for on the finance website.
Okay.
Anybody else questions? We are really trying to get through these as quickly as we can. We're sorry for all the delays. We did not get access to even start processing for a month after the conversion. So we're playing catch up, but we're trying really hard.
All right, thanks, Deborah. Okay, moving on. So we have these tickets. So what are we doing about it? What's our path forward? Couple of things to mention. So within finance, there's a new team that's being created. It's the official name is not the Oracle Support Unit, but that's the name they have right now, and that's what they're using for recruitments. So for now, we'll go with that. So what's this team going to do? So this team's going to be comprised of a supervisor and 6 staff, made up of accountant 3s and 4s. So they're going to have a lot of different things on their plate. One of the things that will impact what we're talking about today is some bandwidth in answering tickets. So currently they have one staff that's been onboarded, another who was onboarded last week. They will have one staff that's dedicated to non-sponsored projects in PPM. And then the other staff will be dedicated to sponsored projects, and will be helping to support not just tickets, but that'll be an area where we can kind of increase some of that bandwidth. For now, where they're helping is on cost transfers that are from non-sponsored project to non-sponsored project. So they have a staff that's getting up to speed. Deborah's done some training with them to kind of give them the updates to what we've been doing with cost transfers. So we're getting some resources to help immediately with the non-sponsored projects. If it's a transfer from or to a faculty project and a sponsored project, then CGA is still supporting those. In the future, they have a second person that's been onboarded, is being trained up, and they're waiting to bring in a couple more people before this other person will then be dedicated to sponsored project support. So they will be able to help with some of the ticket backlog that we're seeing on cost transfers for sponsored projects. Obviously, that's not going to be their only task. Be a big area of help for CGA, but they'll also be helping in the coordination of the monthly close, which CGA has been doing. So we've been, there's different reports that we're monitoring, different items we have to make sure are clear for the monthly close related to unprocessed costs and different create accounting error logs. And so they're going to help by taking over that coordination. So it's good in that we're increasing some bandwidth, not directly in CGA, but they will be able to support some of the items that CGA has had to kind of wrestle with. So what are some other actions? So another thing that we've done, as Deborah mentioned, she's trained 12 people just on cost transfers. We've increased the number of licensed users in ServiceNow. So we started out, we had our research administrator 4s and supervisors, as well as the other leadership in CGA, all had access to ServiceNow. We did have some units that previously had ServiceNow to manage cases, but we had to make some changes because, as you know, now ServiceNow for Aggie Enterprise relies on incidents. So we've increased the number of users. That has allowed us to increase the number of people answering tickets. We've been able to start spreading those out, getting more bandwidth, getting more support in the ticketing system. We've assigned one analyst to basically do the triaging for the whole group. One of the limitations with incidents is that you can't categorize the tickets. The categorization is helpful in the early stages to identify kind of the trends. Where are we seeing them? Most of the tickets being generated, what are areas where we need additional support, and additional knowledge transfer from our colleagues with Deloitte and with the PPM project team. So in addition to assigning tickets through the triage, we're also using tags to help kind of categorize the work. We're continuing to have kind of working sessions, topic-based with the PPM project team that was comprised of the subject matter experts, project managers, and our colleagues from Deloitte. So we're continuing to identify the areas where we need more training, more kind of the more complex nuances that we're seeing as a result of the migration to Oracle. Those are ongoing. The staff from Deloitte is on. Some will be rolling back, but we do have dedicated resources through the fiscal year end. So we're continuing to leverage their skill set and make sure we have the knowledge transfer needed so that, you know, we're self-sufficient when they roll off the project. So in addition, what are the resources? So we've talked about kind of the stats, kind of a path forward. Another part of the path forward is maintaining the resources that have been put up to help support the campus community with the questions that they have. As you've probably noticed, office hours have been on spring break this week, so they're not on the calendar. They will resume next week, same time, same location. It is a series of, it is one main office hour that has breakout sessions, of which CGA is one breakout room. There are other topics, so if you have questions unrelated to CGA, you can usually find your answers there. I know SM has their own office hours. I believe theirs are at 11, but so this is just for the finance office hours. Discussions are underway right now about the cadence of the office hours as we get closer to the fiscal year end, possibly increasing them, but those are just, nothing has been decided on that, but the office hours still serve as a good support for any questions that you may have. They've been, I think, fairly well attended, so I think it's been a valuable resource. I hope that you're finding it that way. And I want to kind of finish before I go to the question slide, just to give kudos to the CGA team. They've really worked hard. They've been, you know, if you've been through any migrations like this, it's always a challenge. There's a lot of, you know, you have to first deal with blackout periods because you have to cut off your accounting period so you can migrate it. You can't just roll into the new session. So we've been dealing with backlogs of transactions from the result of the migration blackout period. We've also been dealing with, you know, once the data is in the new system, we are live, we can use the system, but we have to go through a series of reconciliations to make sure that the data that we're using, that we're comfortable with the data before we start generating invoices and doing cash draws. But all those functions have been ongoing, and a lot of that has been from this, you know, the dedicated work that the staff, not just the leadership team, but all the staff in CGA. So I just wanted to give them kudos for all the hard work they've been doing to kind of help us navigate through this period of time. So with that, I'll leave it open to questions. I've got Deborah, who had, you know, spoke of cost transfers. So I have Lenora on, who's been really one of the key people in office hours, answering a lot of questions as it relates to the award setup and what we're seeing in award setup and the different elements of the award setup. So let me stop sharing.
Thank you, Mario. One thing I want to add to what you said regarding transitions and all of that is that I have seen, I think, at least 3 of these transitions in the, you know, what used to be extramural accounting. Now it is CGA. Transitions are always subject to, exactly, Mario, as you said, you know, some situations that come in and you have to keep fixing them. The previous transitions we had, I think one of them was around the time that the volume that we had in sponsored programs was somewhere around 250 million. The next one was around 500 roughly million. Now this transition is dealing with extramural fund of over, from my point of view at least, over 1 billion. And honestly, I think that this has been the smoothest transition that, you know, we have seen. Maybe, you know, our colleagues on campus might not agree or might not believe it, but from what I see up to this point, again, my observation might not be correct. This has been really the smoothest transition. Technologies have changed, things are more complicated. your office, Mario, has to deal with so many new requirements, policy, federal, state, and so on and so forth. The volume you are dealing with, and again, my point stays the same, that out of the 3 transitions that I have seen over time, I honestly think that this has been the smoothest. When you are in the middle of it, it might not feel like that, but that's what we see. Thank you, Mario, and the team.
I appreciate that perspective. Looks like some questions. I don't know. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the chat while I was. So I don't know what order these are in.
And then Mia.
I'm sorry, Deborah, what was that?
I think B was first and then Mia.
Okay,
Mia
Okay.
was actually
B.
first.
Right, Mia, what's your question?
I just wanted to know, I was trying to reconcile my extramural accounts with my December with the conversion. And they're not matching. I'm just wondering when that is, is there a problem there? Am I not looking at the right stuff? I mean, none of my accounts seem to match for December, the conversion numbers that came into AE.
What report are you using to reconcile, or how are you?
I'm looking at a transaction listing and pulling up the conversion.
Lenora, this has come up in office hours. Have we what have we looked at?
Yeah, so our recommendation is if you have something that you're not matching up, go ahead and submit a ServiceNow ticket and attach what you pulled up and what you're seeing is the difference, so we can look into it.
Thank you.
And the other place I would suggest checking is if you look at the December DS ledgers versus either in project costs or on the award where it shows the budget and the expenses, to see if that matches and it just is the transaction listing that's off. So we can kind of just compare and see possibly where the mismatches.
There's so many reports in there. Everything's so new, so it's kind of hard to figure out which one,
Yeah, well, and you got to remember, like for sponsored projects, those expenses are posting within PPM, so on the project cost reports, whereas the transaction listing is pulling from the GL, so there might be a mismatch on those. Yes, we understand like it should match for what was converted over, but it could be just how it's being pulled up or something like that. So that's our recommendation.
All right, great, thank you.
I'll add to that too, that in logging the ticket, it helps us to look at Lenore and I met yesterday with some of the project team to look at what kind of reports we may still be looking for, because there are a lot of reports, there are a lot of as somebody mentioned, we're all kind of learning together to see the reporting functionality that Oracle has. So part of it may be just navigating the existing reports, finding the best, not only the best reports, but the best uses for these reports. So the opening the ticket gives us that ability to kind of look at that and work on filling any gaps that there might be in reporting. So Beat it. I think you have your hand up. You're the only other hand that I can see up.
So I actually have a question from the SPO side. So I am the team leader of the outgoing support. So we get a lot of questions with the new invoicing. And there's currently an issue where we issue the new subawards and you need PO numbers to process the invoices, but we can't put a PO number until we issue the subaward. So it's kind of a cycle of, we're getting a lot of questions of how do they submit for invoicing when we don't have the number. Is there anything that we can recommend? I put on the department admin and the PI But is there some kind of workaround where we can have all that information kind of upfront that is needed that we can put into our agreements so they can invoice smoothly from the get-go?
No, because we can't initiate the requisition until we have CGAs receive the subaward, right?
Mhm.
So, and you know, maybe this is something we could talk about offline, but essentially, once we enter the requisition, it routes to the project manager on those awards, and they get the information of the PO number, right? So depending on when that they've approved and all that. So it might be that it needs to be, I don't know if an amendment after it comes into effect, or whatever, but we can't create a PO number until we can get your final document. So
Okay. Yeah, I'll send another follow-up email to you on that. Thank you so much.
yeah.
So, Katie, I was just typing a note, but I'll just say, if you could send me that ticket number, I'll take a look at it and see if we can move it forward.
Well, there are some questions in the chat. First one I see is from Jennifer Gwynn.
Yes, we're working on draws, right, Mario?
Yes. Let's see, let me read this. We're working with the switch ideas with CJ. Yes. So Jennifer, we've got all our full complement of draws going through this month. We ramped them up last month. We had to make sure that, as you can imagine, we had to verify the data coming over, the costs that were imported for December. So those are moving forward. And let's see. So we're drawing, we've always drawn on an open ledger. So we pull the expenses as of the date of the draw. So it's not in old KFS terms where we would draw on a closed ledger. We didn't draw a closed ledger. We always pull the expenses as of that date that we're providing the draw, if that's what you're asking. And Alexa, our final financial report still being sent out. Yes, we're still doing all of those functions. We're doing all of the same functions. We're still doing. We have, as you can imagine, with some of the blackout periods in the data, migration, we were a little behind on getting some of those out, but we have dedicated staff right now that are both doing our normal, what we call our normal production work, as well as working on tickets and resolving those issues.
And
Okay, I hadn't received any, so I just was suddenly concerned that either they were on hold or that SPO closeouts wasn't on the emails anymore, or they were somewhere that I was supposed to go find them because it's a different system now. So I just was concerned because I just want to make sure that I'm not missing something because it's been a bit. So
yeah.
So Alexa, the sending to SPO closeouts was kind of on our part 2 of our closeout checklist. And right now, I think we're in the mode, or I'm speaking on behalf of the revenue team, the mode of trying to just get them to the sponsor to do what we can, to get those out the door. So we haven't necessarily got to the second part, which is probably why you haven't been receiving those yet. So.
Okay, as long as as long as at some point, I just was worried that somehow in like the transition that just got dropped and that I was going to just miss several months and then have to go back and ask you guys. And that was going to just be a thing, and you guys were going to just hate me for asking you because I didn't bring it up earlier. So yeah, because I have to have those for closeout. So I just wanted to make sure before it was a problem later on down the line. But I understand we're in like war times right now and we need to just triage stuff. So let's just, you do what you need to do. And as long as it's going to come get at me at some point, I'm totally fine with that. So yeah.
Yeah. And if you need certain reports or whatever, feel free to
I have
I'm
submitted
gonna
a few
put-
tickets for ones where I need specifically, like if I get a closeout deobligation from the sponsor and I need to compare the amounts, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'll specifically ask you guys, but otherwise, I'm fine because closeouts takes a while. So I'm fine to
Yeah.
wait until you guys get
We're working
yourselves
on the
sorted.
fires.
You guys
Yeah.
just put the big fires out. I can wait. You don't even worry about it. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't gotten lost in the shuffle. So, because I will need them at some point. So I didn't want us to all have to fix it later. So cool. Thank you very much.
Seda, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right. But yes, please log a ticket on those. We do have, one of the issues in Oracle is it's very rigid with the dates. The dates, like what Deborah was mentioning on the cost transfers, dates drive our ability to post transactions. So if you could log that ticket, we'll get that going.
Also, Mario, can I just bring up real quick? If
Yeah.
you send a ticket to CGA compliance, we cannot transfer that ticket to the fund management teams. They come in as a different type of ticket. So if you have an Aggie Enterprise issue, make sure you log it through the Aggie Enterprise website.
And I think the last question was planned resources regarding the cost share process. And yes, we're working through that right now. I know, Deborah, I don't know if you have a little bit more information on where we are on the with the cost share process.
Cost share process, we've started reaching out to departments for additional information that we need to finish the cost share setup. We need to know the purpose of the award, which we can look up, but if you can tell us, it's quicker. And we need to know which fund is going to be funding your cost share expenses. So that's the 5-digit fund that relates back to your old 9900 funds or 99100, but it's the second segment in your GL chart of accounts. So we need to know that number to attach it to your cost share project in Aggie Enterprise. And I'm working on a KBA for how to process cost share, but essentially there's going to be a cost share project, and direct charge and cost share are no longer going to be mutually exclusive. It won't be either a direct charge or a cost share item. It'll be either an item that is direct charged to the sponsored project or an item that is direct charged to the cost share project. And if you can wrap your heads around that, you're 90% of the way there. It should be pretty simple because it's going to look just like your sponsored project will look, but it'll be a second report that will show all the cost share items that were charged to the cost share project. And as I said, I'm working on a KBA. I'm hoping to get something out within the next couple weeks. And we're working on getting all the converted funds set up with cost share projects. New awards that have been set up since Aggie Enterprise began should already have cost share set up. And if you need other cost share projects set up, you need to put in a request through a ticket.
So Deborah, a couple of related questions coming through on cost share. One about third party. I know we talked about that yesterday.
We are working on a solution for third party. It is not, we discovered there was a problem with our planned process, and we're figuring out what we're going to do. But I think we have a solution. I'm not ready to announce it quite yet.
Okay, and
correct for the project created, we need to set up another project because I don't think we can change the code. I don't think we can change the fund after the project is set up. So if you have a cost share project with the wrong fund, then we need to set up a second one. And so put in a ticket for that. What is the first item I needed? The first item that I asked for is the purpose of the award. So that's going to be your higher ed function code in the past. the 44, 45 for research. Everybody familiar with that? Give me a nod. Nobody's nodding, okay. Lisa, I'm not sure what JB you're talking about there.
Hi, I have a quick question. So I did have a cost share project created for a new project when Aggie Enterprise launched in January, and the fund code is incorrect. So if I'm understanding this correctly, that cost share chart string will be completely closed out and a new cost share project will be created for that?
I believe so. I looked yesterday to see if there was any way I could change the fund and I was not able to find it. So I'm trying to get confirmation. But I do believe that a new cost share project needs to be created and the old one will be dated such that it won't be available anymore.
Okay, thank you so much.
I have a
Likewise, if you
question.
have two fund sources, we need two cost share projects set up.
Just on the follow-up on what you said, these items that you need, the purpose code and the fund, do we just send those to you or do we put in a ticket with those items in there so you can create the project?
Yeah, if you actually enter a ticket, I can get it right to the person who's working on the cost share. I have a person dedicated to working on cost share right now.
Okay.
I can give the ticket directly to her and she can do it right away.
And then another question is, do we still need to enter cost share in the cost share application still until our project is created, or should we stop that?
Cost share in the old system is only going to be through the December transactions. So
Through
you'll be
December,
reporting
okay.
through December in there, and any reporting from January forward will be in Aggie Enterprise.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. And if you have a transition issue, if you had a problem with the old system or you're having a problem getting the new system going, send me a ticket and I will figure out a way that we can get the information we need to the sponsor. I'm sure more than one fund be used. For cost share, more than one fund can be used, but we have to set up a separate project for each fund. Jennifer, is that what you needed?
Yes, thank you.
There's a hands up, Maru.
How do you log unrecovered indirects? That is going to be part of the third-party cost share solution. So I'm going to put a pin in that one until we've got a approved process in place. We're just still vetting the process and making sure that it's going to work the way we think it will.
Maru, I think you have your hand up. Unless...
Yes. If we're direct charging the cost share project, what if, like, if it's salaries, we're managing those in the GL? So does that mean that we need to directly charge and put in UC Pass funding entry the COA of that cost share project for whatever percentage?
You will need to identify the cost share project in your chart string, yes. You'll direct charge it to the cost share project. And you will have to change your distributions or your funding entry page, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So Deborah, just to clarify, we would need to do SCTs back to January,
Correct.
right? Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Did I miss any questions? Anybody still have something out there?
I think you got them.
Okay, yeah, we'll get information to you as soon as we can about the third party and the unrecovered indirects, etc.
And I know Deborah and Francisco and James were in meetings this week. We're definitely working on this, on cost transfers cost share, just to make sure that we're getting the answers out and getting our solution in place.
Yeah, and like I said, I've got one person working pretty much full time on it.
Okay.
Well, looks Thank you. Thank you for the questions and again, wanted to reiterate the office hours, pick up again next week as a resource. And we'll do our best to keep on top of things.
Okay, thank you, Mario, and the team there in CGA. Any other general questions from anywhere else to things that were discussed or? Well, if not, I think we are at the end of the session.
Ahmed, I'd like to hop in and
Oh, I'm sorry. I
something.
always forget that. Go ahead, talk about the trainings.
Ahmed's always forgetting me. Oh, so hello, everybody. I'm Perry. I'm the training officer for the Sponsor Programs Office. Just want to let you know about one upcoming training that we have. And I'm putting some info in the chat for you. And so the training is titled Using the OR Budget Templates, because we recommend you use the OR budget templates, and the web address to access those templates is in the chat. And the reason we recommend you use those is because they automatically calculate split rates. They have the latest indirect cost rates, the latest fringe benefit rates, as well as single IRB user rates. And so they help reduce a lot of the math that you need to do to prepare a budget. And they organize content in a way that our reviewers and a lot of sponsor reviewers appreciate. It's very clean. So it's just a good process to use those OR budget templates, but they can be intimidating. So we have a class coming up on Thursday, April 18th from 2 to 4 p.m. And there's a really long address there where you can register for that class. And one thing I just want to let you know about the OR budget templates is that there is a new section that you will note that has been added for UC service agreements and other sponsored activities. So if you have a UC partnership and it doesn't involve research, then you can use this new section to populate your budget. So take a look at that if you haven't already seen it. And that's all from me, unless anyone has a question.
Thank you, Perry. Okay. So I guess we are at the end of the session. We will get together in April. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.